Our gospel reading this morning comes from Mark, where Jesus and the disciples go to a deserted place to rest. The apostles gathered around Jesus and told him all they had done and taught. He said to them, "Come away to a deserted place, all by yourselves, and rest for a while." For many were coming and going, and they had no leisure even to eat. And they went away in the boat to a deserted place by themselves. Now many saw them going and recognized them, and they hurried there on foot from all the towns and arrived ahead of them. As he went ashore, he saw a great crowd, and he had compassion for them, because they were like sheep without a shepherd, and he began to teach them many things. When they had crossed over, they came to land at Gennesaret and moored the boat. Then they got out of the boat. People at once recognized him and rushed about that whole region and began to bring the sick on mats to wherever they heard he was. And wherever he went, into villages or cities or farms, they laid the sick in the marketplace and begged him that they might touch even the fringe of his cloak, and all who touched it were healed.
Well, it's been quite a week. Kind of hectic around here. So if you'll indulge me this morning, I'm going to go over here and just rest a while. Yeah. Oh, even better. Yeah. Well, you know how it is. You get home from a long day at work, dinner's over, the kids are in bed, you finally settle into your recliner, maybe with a good book, maybe the good book, and then the phone rings, right? It's always another telemarketer intruding on your time to rest. Rest. What an inviting word. A break from all the hustle and bustle and activity. Rest. A chance to renew, to slow down. Rest. A break from work, if only for a little while. Rest. An opportunity to stop doing and simply be. Last month, Mark and I took a couple of weeks off from work, and we had our first ever staycation. You know, a vacation where you stay at home. Normally we travel, and when we do, other than the lights of home, the most welcome sight that we see is one of those little blue signs that says rest area. This year we weren't able to travel, so it was the first time in a long time that we got to spend an extended period of time at our house, even if we were catching up on projects that had been on hold for a while. It was nice just to be there and to be able to rest when we wanted to. There is one verse in today's gospel reading that really stands out to me, where Jesus calls the disciples away to a deserted place to rest. It's probably because that word rest is so elusive. Now, admittedly, my life has been filled with so much activity for so long that I have forgotten how to rest. And I bet I'm not alone. So many of us are enslaved by our jobs and the trappings of success that we work all the time. And we want our children to have every opportunity possible. So we schedule their lives to the max, too. There was a recent study done at UCLA in which 32 middle-class families in the Los Angeles were observed for a typical week. to get a snapshot of American family life in the 21st century. The researchers found that families were so consumed with work and with getting ahead in general that they actually spent very little time together enjoying the things that they were working for. They found that about 50 out of 64 parents, that's a big percentage, 50 out of 64 parents never stepped outside the house in the course of a week. They worked a lot at home and spent their leisure time either in front of the computer or in front of the TV. How sad is that? And against all this, we hear Jesus' simple invitation to come away to a deserted place and rest a while. This is not an invitation to take an afternoon off or go on vacation, but a reminder to slow down from the hectic pace at which we live our lives. Throughout the Gospels, Jesus and his disciples are faced with a vast sea of human need and hunger. Will Willimond has talked about it in terms of so many people, so little time. In every case where Jesus sought refuge, there was always someone seeking him out, some need to be met. Previously in Mark, Jesus had sent the disciples out on missionary journeys. And so here, appropriately, Mark calls them apostles, meaning those who are sent out. They have come back to report on their activities of preaching and healing and sharing the gospel. Jesus must have noticed that they were tired, and he told them to come away to a deserted place by themselves and rest a while. Well, as usual, it didn't quite happen that way. Word had gotten around about this Jesus who could raise the dead and heal the sick, and he was drawing crowds. The people attracted by Jesus were the sick, the lame, the diseased, the desperate who had nowhere else to turn. He could have sent them away, or simply stayed in the boat and kept moving. But he saw them as sheep without a shepherd, and he looked on them with compassion. In our first scripture reading this morning, we heard perhaps the most serene images in all of Scripture, in the familiar words of the 23rd Psalm. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. Now, the psalmist says quite clearly that the Lord didn't simply invite rest, but that the Lord makes me lie down in green pastures. We are a people who desperately need rest, but consistently resist it. Well, in your bulletin this morning is a blank piece of paper. You may have been wondering, why is there a blank piece of paper in our bulletin? This morning, I invite you to think about all the things in your life that impair your ability to rest. Now, I don't want you to write them all down. That paper wouldn't be big enough anyway. What I want you to do is write on that paper one thing that you will not do this week. One evening, you will turn off your cell phone or shut down the computer or turn off the TV and just rest. Now, that's not all. Next, I want you to write on this paper one thing you will actually do in order to rest. Take a walk play a game, just sit still for a while. Not in front of the TV, but simply to contemplate your blessings, that you may go to bed that night relaxed and grateful. I'm not going to take those up. They are yours to take home with you to remember your commitment to rest this week. So go ahead, just take a moment to write those two things down on your paper. And while you do, think about where your favorite rest area is. I don't mean on the interstate highway. Is it perhaps a comfortable recliner in your home? Maybe your backyard? A shady fishing spot? Somewhere beside still waters? Or perhaps it's right here in this sanctuary. It's one of my favorite places to come and just be still and get away from the hectic pace once in a while. Today, we're going to close our service in silence. I know that's unusual for you and not something we are used to doing, but I want you to take a moment just to rest, to be still, to be aware of God's presence. This is not a deserted place, but it is a holy place, a sacred space where we encounter God among God's people. You may want to observe the sunlight coming through the stained glass windows, or close your eyes, or bow your head, or simply just sit still. In whatever way you are most comfortable, I invite you just to sit for a moment in silence, to come away and rest a while. Amen.